Hello, Mrs. Watkins class. My name is Virginie, but my friends call me Kit. I live in Belgium, Europe. Mrs. Watkins asked me to talk to you because I have high functioning autism. High functioning means that even though I have a lot of difficulties in my life, I still manage to live on my own, look after myself. I'm married, I have a job, and I have lived independently for most of my adult life. Autism is something that people call a hidden disability because most people can't see my issues. They see a growing woman who seems normal most of the time until someone asks me to do something and I get it completely wrong because they weren't clear enough or explicit enough, or something unexpected happens and I freeze up, I panic, and I just stand there like a rabbit in the headlights. Or maybe I will break down in tears for what might seem a trivial reason. Or maybe I will do or say something that's very unusual for a woman my age, like jump up and down because I'm excited. Or I may get really angry because a sudden noise will have made me jump. Growing up, I was very different from other children, but I never knew I had autism until I was much older. I was a lonely child and I hardly ever played with my schoolmates. For example, I hated playing tag, chasing games, because getting caught made me feel so anxious. I didn't really have friends. During recess, I would just walk around the playground or in school corridors on my own. It may have looked like I was bored. I was not bored. I was making up elaborate stories in my head and I would whisper them to myself. And often I would flap my hands around my face as I was walking around telling the story to myself. My parents and my teachers didn't know that it was a typical autistic behavior, so they never picked up on it. In class, I was often told off for humming to myself as I worked. The reason I did this was to block out other noises that broke my concentration. Most brains, your brains, are very good at filtering out background noises, but autistic brains find that very difficult, so humming helps us cover up those parasite noises. But there again, my parents, my teachers didn't know anything about autism, so they just thought it was an annoying habit that I should get rid of. In school, I worked well because I enjoyed learning things. And I think this is why educational staff never really thought I might have a kind of condition or disability, because after all, I was such a good student. The real problem happened outside the classroom. Because of my unusual behavior, other kids often bullied me and called me crazy. I was never with a popular crowd. I had friends though, in books. I read a lot. Books enabled me to hide in my own world. I could read when I was 4, and from then on I would spend so much time wrapped up in books. I was so absorbed in my books that often I just didn't respond when people talked to me, so they thought I was being rude. Reading so much also helped me develop a vocabulary and a general knowledge that was above what people expected from a child my age. I would often correct people when they made a grammar or factual mistake, and I would talk about all the things I had been reading in my books. This kind of thing is very common for autistic people, but it made me come across as very annoying. As a young adult, I had a lot of problems relating to other people, especially in the workplace. There were often misunderstandings because people assumed I understood what they meant, but they weren't explicit enough and I actually didn't understand them. It even cost me my job once because my boss wanted me to come back from holiday a day early, but she didn't make it clear to me, so I came back a day later and I lost my job. I long struggled with loneliness and depression. I hardly ever socialized outside of work. Eventually, I discovered the internet and I started making friends online instead. This is easier for me because it doesn't have the intensity of face-to-face communication. Communicating via the internet when you type doesn't rely so much on all the non-verbal cues, facial expressions, etc. So it's easier for me. All I have to do is read the words and see what the person means. It also gives me more time to process things, to understand what people want, and to think about what I'm saying. In real life, I can be a little slow to respond because it takes me longer to understand what's being said. When I was 30, I started working in a school for autistic children, and many things in their behavior reminded me of myself and of my childhood. It really intrigued me, and eventually I contacted my doctor. I was assessed by a specialist, and my suspicions were confirmed. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism. It was a relief for me, because it explained why I had always felt so different, why I had so many difficulties, and it helped me be kinder to myself and understand myself and know what to do to relieve some of the symptoms of autism. People on the autistic spectrum, people like me, struggle to process the information that the world throws at them. We experience difficulties in three main areas: social communication, social interaction, and social imagination. When it comes to communication, people with severe autism can't even understand how language works as a communication tool, so they don't speak, they just assume you will know what they want without communicating with you. For higher functioning people such as me, we struggle with understanding facial expressions, body language, subtext, all the little things that are implied or hinted at and that are not made clear. It can also be hard to know how to start an appropriate conversation or to realize someone is joking, you know? I often need time to process what people say to me, which can be a big problem in the workplace. This is what we mean when we say social communication difficulties. Some people think we feel no empathy, but this is not true. In fact, I have huge levels of empathy. Because I can't read non-verbal communication as well as you do, I don't always understand or realize what emotions you are going through. However, if you make it plain and simple and just tell me how you're feeling, you will find me very sympathetic and eager to help. I do care. I just don't always have the tools to understand your emotions. Equally, because I lack the ability to imagine what you feel or think, I might not realize how my words or actions will impact you before it's too late. I might upset you without meaning to. Yet once I realize this, I will be mortified and very willing to make it right, possibly making things worse with my awkwardness. This is why I like online communication, typing things up, because I have more time to think about what I'm saying and to try and think, oh, okay, how might the other person feel if I say that? So that helps me. When someone is suffering, I just feel that intense pang of sadness in my heart, and I have a burning desire to make it better, to help them, to comfort them. So it has been suggested that autistic people may struggle dealing with emotions coming from other people, just like we have difficulty dealing with sensory overload. We struggle when there is too much light or sounds or smells. It might be the same with emotions. When there are too many emotions coming at us, we may struggle with that. That's a theory that some people have. We also have social interaction difficulties. We are confused by social rules that most people abide to without even thinking. Sometimes we behave in ways that seem completely inappropriate, not because we want to upset people, but because we don't realize it's inappropriate. Social situations can feel overwhelming to us, and this is why many of us avoid them. I have trained myself to act in a socially appropriate way, mostly by observing other people and by listening to my mom's advice. It still doesn't come naturally, and the efforts can be exhausting sometimes. If I have to interact with people I don't know well or not at all, I have the extra stress from not knowing how that person will act, and that makes me really, really anxious. Social norms that we find difficult may be imposed on us, like shaking hands or hugging, and we just feel very anxious about that too. Because of all of that, people sometimes think we are antisocial. It's true that some autistic people have little interest in people and friendship, but don't assume this is the case for all of us. Some of us desperately want to make friends, but we really struggle to do so. Actually, I love my friends dearly. I just can't deal with having them around all at the same time. Some of us have acquired enough social skills to make friends and socialize, even though it can be taxing. I avoid socializing in large groups because there's too much noise, too much information, too many conversations at once, and my brain just can't cope. I do much better one-to-one because I only need to focus on one person. I think those of us autistic people who have friends are really blessed because it means we have met open-minded, understanding people who look beyond our social problems and love us just the way we are. Another thing that we struggle with is social imagination. This doesn't mean we don't have imagination as in making up things, stories. I told you before I was good at making up stories. No, it means that when something new, unfamiliar happens, we grow extremely anxious because we don't know how to respond. When we learn a new skill, we don't know how to apply it to different areas of our lives. I can totally freeze up when I feel overwhelmed or even break down in tears because I cannot think of what to do. Uncertainty, not knowing what happens, makes us very anxious. You may know that people with autism need routines. You may not know that it's not just a preference. When something unexpected happens, we feel completely at loss and we panic. In addition, we can suffer from sensory issues such as high sensitivity to sounds, light, smells or touch. These issues can be affected by your physical state. If I'm tired, bright lights, strong smells can feel like a real attack on my senses, and it hurts, it physically hurts. Sudden, loud noises, same thing, they cause me physical discomfort or pain, and they can set me on edge for a long time, even for the whole day. So do unexpected touches. Many people may touch my shoulder in what they mean to be a friendly way, but if I don't expect it, it will make me jump. Always make sure an autistic person is fine with you touching them before you do so. And by the way, that should apply to everyone. My body isn't public property. I'm the one who should decide when it's okay for someone to touch it. You may have heard about stimming too. It's short for self-stimulation. Stimming is repetitive movements or sounds that people on the autistic spectrum use to regulate their emotions. We do this when we feel overwhelmed by sensory things such as noise or things we see, but also in order to calm ourselves if we're nervous, or as an outlet for excitement. We can flap our hands, wriggle our fingers, clap, rock our heads, spin objects, hum, sing, even jump. When I'm nervous, it feels like ants are running up and down my body and they make my fingers wriggle. Sometimes I bite my cheeks or lips. It's an outlet for the build-up of anxiety. When I'm happy, my feelings are bubbling up inside of me and I need to let it out. So I need to dance, to run, to flap my hands. It can be difficult to contain that in public, but I have learned to do so. I wait until I'm at home to let it all out. A common trait of autism is also so-called obsessive or narrow interests. A typical example is a fascination with trains, but it could be anything. We love talking about interests. When I was a child, I was into dinosaurs, Greek mythology, ancient Egypt, and trucks. Later in life, I developed other passions such as religions, fantasy, foxes, and dolphins. I love fantasy novels, film series. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, all of that makes me really excited. I could talk about all these things for hours. I think I've talked enough for now, so it's bye and thank you for listening. Bye bye.